You have dated different people. Different names, different faces, different backgrounds, different circumstances. And yet, somehow, impossibly, infuriatingly, you end up in the same relationship over and over again. The same dynamics emerge. The same conflicts arise. The same disappointments unfold. The same painful ending approaches with the inevitability of a script you did not write but cannot stop performing. You have changed everything external. You have moved to new cities, entered new social circles, promised yourself you would choose differently this time. And still, the pattern repeats with a precision that borders on the supernatural. This is not bad luck. This is not poor judgment. This is not evidence that you are broken or incapable of healthy love. What you are experiencing is one of the most profound and least understood dynamics in human psychology. Carl Jung discovered its mechanism over a century ago, and his insight remains the key that unlocks the prison of repetitive romantic suffering. He called it the projection of the Anima and Animus. And once you understand what this means, everything about your relationship history will suddenly make devastating, liberating sense. Jung spent decades studying the architecture of the human psyche, mapping territories that Freud had only glimpsed. And one of his most revolutionary discoveries concerned the contrasexual elements that exist within every human being. In every man, Jung found, there exists an unconscious feminine component. He called this the anima. In every woman, there exists an unconscious masculine component. He called this the animus. These are not merely abstract concepts. They are living psychological forces, autonomous complexes with their own desires, their own agendas, their own profound influence on every romantic choice you have ever made. In his masterwork Aeon, Jung wrote extensively about these contrasexual archetypes and their role in human relationship. He understood that the anima and animus are not simply internal psychological structures. They are the lenses through which you perceive potential partners. They are the filters that determine who captures your attention and who leaves you indifferent. They are the templates that shape your experience of attraction, of love, of heartbreak. And most crucially, they are the mechanisms through which you unconsciously select partners who will recreate the exact dynamics you most need to resolve. This is why the pattern keeps repeating. You are not randomly choosing partners who happen to share certain characteristics. You are being drawn, with magnetic precision, toward individuals who embody qualities that exist and integrated within your own psyche. The anima or animus functions like a searchlight, scanning every potential partner for specific features, and when it finds a match, it floods your consciousness with the overwhelming experience you call falling in love. But here is what Jung discovered that changes everything. What you experience as falling in love is often not love at all. It is projection. It is the unconscious recognition that this person carries something you desperately need but have not yet developed within yourself. The intensity of attraction is directly proportional to the degree of projection. The more completely you have externalized aspects of your own psyche onto another person, the more powerful the experience of romantic obsession becomes. Jung called this state being possessed by the anima or animus. And possession is precisely the right word. When you are in the grip of this projection, you do not see the actual person before you. You see your own unconscious content reflected back. You fall in love not with a human being but with a projected image, a psychic hologram overlaid onto someone who may bear only superficial resemblance to what you think you are perceiving. This explains the devastating disillusionment that follows the initial phase of so many relationships. The projection cannot hold indefinitely. Reality eventually intrudes. The actual person, with their actual characteristics, begins to emerge from behind the projected image. And what you discover often bears little resemblance to what you thought you had found. You feel betrayed, deceived, as if the person has somehow changed or revealed a hidden true nature. But they have not changed. Your projection has simply begun to dissolve, revealing what was there all along but invisible to your possessed perception. In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Jung described his own encounters with anima projection and the painful process of withdrawing that projection and integrating its contents. He understood from personal experience how powerful these dynamics are, how completely they can override rational judgment, how they can lead intelligent, self-aware individuals into relationships that seem inexplicable in retrospect. The Anima and Animus do not care about your conscious preferences. They have their own agenda, and that agenda is psychological development, not comfortable partnership. Let us examine this mechanism more closely. The anima in a man's psyche typically carries qualities that he has rejected, suppressed, or failed to develop in his conscious personality. If a man has built his identity around rationality, control, and emotional stoicism, his anima often carries the rejected qualities of emotionality, vulnerability, and spontaneity. When he encounters a woman who embodies these qualities, the anima projection activates. He experiences overwhelming attraction, a sense of completion, a feeling that this person holds the key to something essential that has been missing from his life. And in a sense, this is true. The woman does hold a key. But the key is not her. The key is what she represents, the undeveloped aspects of his own psyche that he has projected onto her rather than cultivating within himself. His attraction is not truly to her as an individual but to his own unrealized potential that he sees reflected in her. The same dynamic operates with the animus in a woman's psyche. If a woman has developed primarily the qualities of nurturing, accommodation, and emotional attunement, her animus often carries the rejected qualities of assertion, intellectual authority, and decisive action. When she encounters a man who embodies these qualities, the animus projection activates. She experiences the same overwhelming attraction, the same sense that this person completes her in some fundamental way. But here is where the repetitive pattern begins to make sense. If you have not integrated your anima or animus, if you have not developed internally the qualities you keep seeking externally, you will continue to be drawn to the same type of person over and over again. The face changes. The name changes. The surface circumstances change. But the underlying dynamic remains identical because the underlying psychological condition remains unresolved. Jung identified 4 stages of anima development in men and 4 parallel stages of animus development in women. These stages represent increasing levels of psychological integration and correspondingly healthier relationship patterns. Understanding where you are in this developmental sequence illuminates why you attract the partners you attract and what must change internally before your external patterns can shift. The first stage of anima development Jung associated with the figure of Eve, representing the purely biological and instinctual feminine. A man operating at this level experiences women primarily as objects of physical desire or maternal nurturing. His relationships are characterized by possessiveness, objectification, and an inability to perceive women as complex psychological beings. He attracts and is attracted to women who accept this limited role, and the relationships inevitably fail because the anima demands development that this stage cannot provide. The second stage Jung associated with Helen of Troy, representing the romantic and aesthetic feminine. A man at this level can appreciate women as beautiful and inspiring but still does not perceive them as fully autonomous individuals. His relationships are characterized by idealization and inevitable disappointment, as real women fail to maintain the projected image of perfect romantic beauty. He attracts women who initially accept idealization but eventually rebel against being reduced to an inspiring image rather than recognized as a complete person. The third stage Jung associated with the Virgin Mary, representing spiritual devotion and the capacity for genuine relationship. A man at this level begins to perceive women as having independent psychological existence and spiritual significance. His relationships become capable of genuine intimacy and mutual recognition, though vestiges of projection may still operate. He attracts women capable of deeper connection, and the relationships become more stable and satisfying. The fourth stage Jung associated with Sophia, representing wisdom and the fully integrated feminine. A man who has reached this level has largely withdrawn his anima projection and developed feminine qualities within his own psyche. He no longer needs women to carry his soul for him. He can perceive them clearly, love them genuinely, and relate to them as complete human beings rather than as screens for his projection. His relationships are characterized by mature love, mutual growth, and conscious partnership. The parallel stages of animus development in women follow a similar progression, from the animus as mere physical power, through the animus as romantic hero and intellectual authority, toward the animus as spiritual guide and finally as integrated inner wisdom. A woman at earlier stages attracts men who embody progressively more sophisticated projections, while a woman who has integrated her animus can finally see and love an actual man rather than a projected image. This framework explains with devastating precision why your relationships follow repetitive patterns. If you have not progressed through these developmental stages, if your anima or animus remains at an early level of development, you will continue to project at that level. You will continue to be attracted to partners who match your projection. You will continue to experience the same dynamics, the same disappointments, the same painful recognitions that the person you fell in love with does not actually exist. But Jung's insight offers more than diagnosis. It offers a path forward. The key to breaking repetitive relationship patterns is not finding the right person. It is becoming the right person. It is withdrawing the projection, integrating the anima or animus, developing internally what you have been seeking externally. When you do this work, your attraction patterns naturally shift. You stop being drawn to people who embody your projections and start being capable of perceiving and loving actual human beings. In 2 essays on analytical psychology, Jung described the process of anima and animus integration in detail. He emphasized that this is not intellectual work. You cannot think your way to integration. The anima and animus are emotional, imaginal, autonomous forces. They must be encountered on their own terms, through dreams, through active imagination, through careful attention to the irrational attractions and repulsions that govern your romantic life. Jung recommended what he called dialogue with the anima or animus, a process of active imagination where you engage these inner figures directly, learn what they want, understand what they represent, and gradually integrate their qualities into conscious personality. This sounds esoteric, but the practical results are profound. As you develop relationship with your inner contrasexual element, you become less dependent on external partners to carry that element for you. Your projections diminish. Your perception clears. Your capacity for genuine love increases. There is another aspect of this dynamic that Jung explored extensively. The anima and animus are not only shaped by personal psychology. They carry collective, archetypal content as well. Your inner feminine or masculine is influenced by every image of woman or man you have ever encountered, from your parents to cultural representations to mythological figures absorbed unconsciously from the collective environment. This is why anima and animus projections often have a transpersonal, larger-than-life quality. When you fall in love under their influence, you are not just projecting personal content. You are projecting archetypal images that carry the accumulated power of human experience across millennia. This collective dimension explains why romantic love has been the subject of such intense cultural fascination throughout human history. The experience of falling in love, of being possessed by anima or animus projection, connects the individual to something larger than personal psychology. It is numinous, sacred, transformative, but it is also dangerous precisely because of this power. When you are gripped by an archetypal projection, you lose contact with ordinary reality. You become capable of decisions and behaviors that seem insane in retrospect. You sacrifice practical considerations, existing relationships, even your own well-being in pursuit of the projected beloved. Jung warned in The Undiscovered Self about the dangers of unconscious possession by archetypal forces. He understood that the modern world, having lost conscious relationship with these powers through the decline of religious and mythological frameworks, is particularly vulnerable to being possessed by them unconsciously. Romantic love has become the primary arena where modern people encounter the numinous, and they enter this arena completely unprepared for the forces they will encounter there. This is why so many relationships begin with the intensity of religious conversion and end with the devastation of psychological catastrophe. The archetypal forces involved are enormous. When projection dissolves, when the ordinary human being emerges from behind the godlike image, the fall is correspondingly devastating. You feel not merely disappointed but betrayed at a cosmic level, as if something sacred has been profaned. But here is what Jung ultimately understood. This process, however painful, serves psychological development. The anima and animus are not trying to torture you. They are trying to evolve. Each failed relationship, each dissolved projection, each painful confrontation with the gap between image and reality, is an opportunity for integration. The question is whether you take that opportunity or simply repeat the pattern with a new partner. Most people repeat the pattern. Most people conclude that they simply chose the wrong person and that the next relationship will be different. Most people externalize the problem, looking for better partners rather than examining what in their own psyche generated the attraction in the first place. And so the pattern continues, sometimes for an entire lifetime, leaving behind a trail of broken relationships and the persistent sense that real love remains forever out of reach. You do not have to be one of these people. You have already taken the first step by recognizing the pattern. You have already demonstrated unusual psychological awareness by questioning why the same dynamics keep repeating. Now you must take the next step, which is turning inward rather than outward, examining your own anima or animus rather than searching for a new external partner. What qualities do you repeatedly seek in romantic partners? What characteristics trigger your most intense attractions? What aspects of the people you fall in love with turn out, again and again, to be projections rather than realities? These questions, honestly examined, reveal the contents of your anima or animus with precision. They show you exactly what you have been projecting, exactly what remains unintegrated in your own psyche. Jung observed in man and his symbols that dreams provide particularly clear access to anima and animus figures. In dreams, these inner personalities appear directly, unmediated by projection onto external individuals. The mysterious woman who appears in a man's dreams, beautiful and frightening, beckoning and elusive, is his anima showing herself without disguise. The powerful man who appears in a woman's dreams, authoritative and dangerous, attractive and threatening, is her animus revealing his nature directly. Attending to these dream figures, dialoguing with them, learning from them, is essential work for anyone seeking to break free from repetitive relationship patterns. There is also the matter of what Jung called a shadow in relationship to anima and animus dynamics. Often, what you project onto romantic partners includes not only idealized qualities but also rejected shadow material. The man who repeatedly attracts chaotic, emotionally volatile women may be projecting both his undeveloped feminine and his repressed chaos onto his partners. The woman who repeatedly attracts cold, emotionally unavailable men may be projecting both her undeveloped masculine and her repressed emotional distance onto her partners. Untangling these combined projections requires honest shadow work alongside anima or animus integration. Jung was careful to note that the goal is not elimination of the anima or animus but conscious relationship with these inner figures. You will always have an inner feminine or masculine. You will always, to some degree, experience romantic attraction through the lens of this contrasexual element. But there is an enormous difference between being unconsciously possessed by anima or animus and consciously engaging with these forces as partners in psychological development. When you achieve conscious relationship with your anima or animus, several things change in your external romantic life. First, the intensity of projection diminishes. You can still feel attraction, but you are no longer overwhelmed by it, no longer possessed by it, no longer unable to perceive the actual person behind the projected image. Second, your attraction patterns shift. You begin to be drawn to people who are genuinely compatible rather than people who simply trigger your projection. Third, your capacity for real intimacy increases. When you are not relating to a projection, you can actually see and be seen by another person. Fourth, your relationships become more stable. Without the inevitable disappointment of projection dissolution, relationships can develop and deepen over time rather than following the boom-bust pattern of idealization and disillusionment. This is what healthy love actually looks like. Not the overwhelming intensity of projection-fueled romance, but the quieter, deeper experience of genuinely knowing and being known by another person. Jung understood that this kind of love is only possible when the anima or animus has been sufficiently integrated. Until then, you are not loving a person. You are loving an image. And images, by their nature, cannot love you back. The work I am describing is not easy. It requires confronting aspects of yourself that you have spent a lifetime avoiding. It requires tolerating the anxiety of not immediately projecting onto new potential partners. It requires mourning the loss of the intoxicating intensity that projection provides. It requires patience as you develop internally what you have been seeking externally. It requires faith that the quieter experience of genuine love is worth the sacrifice of projection-fueled passion. But the alternative is the pattern you have already experienced. The same relationship, different face. The same dynamics, different name. The same disappointment, different circumstances. The same ending, different location. You know where that path leads. You have walked it multiple times. You know its destination is not love, but the exhausted recognition that nothing has changed and nothing will change until something fundamental shifts. That fundamental shift is the integration of the anima or animus. That shift is the withdrawal of projection and the development of internal wholeness. That shift is becoming capable of perceiving and loving an actual human being rather than a psychic image overlaid onto a convenient screen. That shift is the difference between repetitive romantic suffering and genuine partnership. Jung offered this insight not as theoretical abstraction but as practical wisdom derived from decades of clinical observation and personal experience. He watched countless individuals trapped in repetitive relationship patterns, and he watched some of them break free through the inner work he prescribed. He knew that the external pattern cannot change until the internal condition changes. He knew that the next relationship will repeat the last relationship unless something fundamental shifts in the psyche of the person doing the choosing. You are now equipped with knowledge that most people never encounter. You understand why the pattern repeats. You understand the mechanism of projection. You understand the role of the anima and animus in romantic attraction. You understand that the solution is not external but internal. What you do with this knowledge is your choice. You can return to the familiar pattern, searching once again for the right external partner. Or you can turn inward, engage the work of integration, and finally break free from the repetitive dynamic that has characterized your romantic life until now. The anima and animus are not your enemies. They are aspects of your own psyche seeking development and expression. When you project them, you externalize what should be internal, and you doom yourself to repetitive patterns of attraction and disappointment. When you integrate them, you become whole within yourself, and you become capable of the genuine love that projection makes impossible. Jung believed that this integration is part of the larger process of individuation, the development of the complete human being. Romantic relationship, in his view, is not merely about companionship or reproduction. It is an arena for psychological development, perhaps the most powerful arena available to most people. Every relationship, successful or failed, offers material for this development. The question is whether you use that material or simply repeat the pattern without learning what it has to teach. Your relationship history is not a record of failure. It is a record of your anima or animus seeking integration through the only means it had available, projection onto external partners. Each relationship revealed something about what lives unintegrated within you. Each ending offered an opportunity to withdraw projection and develop internally. That you have repeated the pattern is not shameful. It is human. That you now understand the pattern is not common. It is the beginning of liberation. The same relationship, different face, ends here if you choose. The pattern that has governed your romantic life can be broken. Not through finding the perfect partner, but through becoming psychologically whole. Not through external searching, but through internal development. Not through another projection, but through genuine sight. This is Jung's gift to those trapped in repetitive romantic suffering. Understanding. A map of the territory. A path forward. What you do with this gift determines whether your next relationship repeats the last or finally becomes something genuinely new. If you recognized your own pattern in these words, if you finally understand why the same relationship keeps wearing different faces, then subscribe to this channel. Here we explore the depths of Jungian psychology and the path toward genuine love. The pattern can be broken. The cycle can end. But only if you are willing to look within.